So here's the thing. Harry's been in a weird spiral for a while, but this takes the cake. You've probably heard murmurs about some suspicious stuff on the birth certificate of little Lilibet Diana, but the latest whispers? They're not just about a misplaced title or a typo. No, it's deeper than that. There's talk that Meghan may have pulled off a full-blown vanishing act, one where Harry's actual name barely even exists on his own daughter's birth certificate. And that's not a figure of speech. Like literally it's not there. Now, pause and think about that. Your name, your legal identity, being wiped from one of the most important documents tied to your child's life. That's the situation Harry's in. According to reports on Lilibet's birth certificate, instead of listing Harry's legal first and last name, the one the government actually recognizes, they went with something wild. The Duke of Sussex as his first name, and his Royal Highness as his last. Imagine pulling out a passport or any legal ID in real life with that combo. You'd get laughed out of the office. What's crazy is that this wasn't some mistake by a sleep-deprived hospital clerk. This looked intentional, and it reeks of one person's favorite tool, Meghan's sleight of hand. Because while everyone's busy arguing over royal titles and who should use HRH, nobody seemed to notice the deeper game. Harry's identity being erased from a government record, that's not a royal argument. That's legal sleaze. Here's where it gets murkier. In the UK, titles like Duke can be used on documents, sure, but legally, you still have to include your real name. It's like putting doctor on a form. It's cute and all, but you still need to list John Smith underneath. Except Harry's John Smith equivalent is missing, gone, wiped clean, and somehow the birth certificate was still issued. And that's when it hits you. This might not have been just some innocent mistake or even some dramatic royal rebellion. This might have been tactical. Because let's be real, Meghan knows the game. She knows paperwork. She's been navigating the legal world, the royal world, the Hollywood world, and now here's a little piece of paper that could make it harder for Harry to assert legal rights over his own kids. You don't think she knew what she was doing? Especially when you learn that birth certificates are foundational for everything. Passports, legal claims, custody disputes, everything. And without Harry's proper legal name on there, things start falling apart fast. And guess what? That's exactly what did happen. When Harry tried to get British passports for Archie and Lilibet, the whole thing stalled. He faced months of delays. And when they asked why, the answer? Technical issues. Sure. Technical issues, but Harry knew something was off. He was pissed, and I don't blame him. He even allegedly floated the idea of using the name Spencer instead. Yep, his mother's maiden name as a workaround. Think about that level of desperation. A literal prince of the United Kingdom trying to apply for his kid's documents using the name of a family he was never legally part of. It's the kind of thing you do when you've hit a wall and your last name suddenly doesn't hold any weight. So what's really going on here? Is this just royal incompetence, or is it something more intentional? Because from where I'm sitting, this isn't just about names. It's about power, legal power. Meghan might have just played a legal game of chess where Harry's identity was the first piece off the board. And the consequences? They're just starting to unfold. When you peel back the layers of this mess, it's hard not to wonder how Harry got caught in such a tangled web. This isn't just some bureaucratic hiccup, it's personal. Because while Harry is stumbling around trying to get legal documents for his children, Meghan is out here playing three-dimensional chess with institutions. And let's be honest, she's good at it. She knows exactly which strings to pull and, more importantly, which strings to cut. So Harry's tied up with nothing left to hold on to. And let's talk about those passport delays. On paper, it's listed as technical issues, but it doesn't take a genius to connect the dots. You can't just slap a royal title where a legal name is supposed to go and expect everything to go smoothly. British passport applications require verified birth certificates. If Harry's real name wasn't on Lilibet's document, that right there is a red flag. No wonder they had to jump through hoops, send legal threats, and try to escalate the whole thing through a 24-hour emergency service just to get the paperwork moving again. But what makes it even messier is that Harry didn't just want standard passports. He allegedly insisted on including their royal titles, HRH and all. That alone was enough to grind the process to a halt, especially considering the royal family had already made it pretty clear Harry and Meghan aren't supposed to be using those titles for commercial or public ventures. But Harry? He seems determined to hold on to that last sliver of royal identity, even if it means dragging his kids into the mud with him. There's a kind of desperation in his moves. Reports say he even threatened to request all internal data related to the delays. That's not a guy who's just annoyed. He's a guy who knows something is being hidden and wants receipts. And that's when it clicks. Harry might finally be realizing that the control he thought he had isn't really there anymore. Meghan isn't just steering the ship. She might be the one who built it in the first place. And then there's the re-registration. According to legal sources, if a birth certificate is missing the father's actual name, you can't just brush that off. The birth has to be legally re-registered. That's a process. You have to submit evidence, provide consent, and basically redo one of the most important documents in a child's life. So while everyone's talking about whether or not Meghan's using HRH on business cards, behind the scenes, Harry's scrambling just to make sure his name is legally tied to his own daughter. It gets even darker when you look at the bigger picture. If Harry ever wanted to travel with the kids, say go to the UK without Meghan, he'd need her written permission. That's the law. And if Meghan refuses, he's stuck. A prince who can't even board a plane with his children unless the woman who controls the paperwork signs off. And let's be honest, does anyone believe she'd hand over that kind of power easily? What's most unsettling is how invisible Harry's becoming in all this, stripped of his full royal identity, now potentially stripped of legal clarity as a parent. Meghan, meanwhile, keeps her cards close and her hands clean. Whether by accident or design, she's sitting in the one position that matters most, holding the key to the kids, to the paperwork, and maybe even to Harry's remaining connection to the royal world he still clings to. Harry might still wear the title, but when it comes to actual power, he's been outmaneuvered. The man who once stood steps away from the throne is now orbiting his own family, watching as legal documents, travel permissions, and even the simple right to be a father are tangled in red tape and royal politics. And it's not just the monarchy putting up roadblocks, it's the life he helped build that's starting to box him in. Dig into the details, and it's clear that the birth certificate situation was never just about formatting. It was about establishing legal precedent. Because when a document as critical as your child's birth certificate omits your full legal name, you've already started writing yourself out of the narrative. Whether Meghan orchestrated that intentionally or not, the effect is the same. Harry's presence as a legal parent was blurred, if not outright erased. That matters more than people realize. In legal disputes, custody cases, or international travel scenarios, the absence of a full, verified parent on a birth certificate opens up loopholes. Courts, consulates, and government agencies don't deal in titles, they deal in legal identity. And if Harry ever found himself in a dispute with Meghan over the kids, God forbid during a divorce or separation, he'd be starting from a weaker position. Paperwork doesn't care who your grandmother was. There's something else too. It's not just the legal disadvantage, it's the symbolic erasure. The world sees Harry still walking around with a royal label, but in the documents that actually matter, the ones that define parenthood, travel, inheritance, he's becoming more and more of a ghost. Meghan, on the other hand, has carved out a new power structure, one not tied to Buckingham Palace, but built on strategic positioning, legal control, and a very calculated understanding of optics. Take a look at how the media has played into this. Reports keep circling around the couple's use of royal titles in business deals, media appearances, even branding. But nobody seems to question the legal inconsistencies that are slipping through the cracks. How does a birth certificate get processed with no trace of the father's real name? How does a man like Harry end up submitting legal threats just to get documents for his own children? It all reeks of distraction. Focus on the surface-level drama, while the real power dynamics shift quietly behind closed doors. Even more troubling is what happens if Meghan decides to cut Harry out even further. With travel laws being what they are, she could deny him the ability to leave the country with their kids. And since most custody laws favor the primary caregiver, especially in countries like the US, she'd be left fighting from a place of weakness. Every time he steps into a courtroom, a passport office, or a consulate, the same question will echo: where's your legal standing? And let's not forget the registration. If that happened, it means there was a recognition, quiet behind the scenes, that something was wrong with the original document. It means someone had to go back, fix things, and patch up the oversight. But by that time, damage had already been done. Delays had set in, trust had frayed, and the deeper story had started to spread. That story? It's not about birth certificates or passports. It's about how easily a prince can be turned into a bystander in his own life, how someone who once represented royalty now has to fight just to have his name on a piece of paper. It's about how power, when handled carefully, doesn't need a crown to rule. Sometimes all it takes is a pen, a form, and the foresight to know exactly what names not to include.